What about when you come to like altitude, someplace like Denver? Still full blown race gas?
Yeah, that's weird because isn't some of the fuel almost a disadvantage to run at elevation?
Because there's less oxygen, so you're basically flooding the motor with too much fuel. It can't get enough, so you're honestly bogging the motor down. I know some of the race teams that I've talked to, who knows if they tell me the truth, but they're like, hey, we almost just run pump up here because the motors can't take it.
Have you guys ever rode at elevation?
So I live here, and I know on the dyno, if I
Where
put,
do
He's in Colorado.
yeah, I'm in Colorado, so mile high, 6,000 feet or so, and the numbers come out to be about like at sea level, you get about 18% more power,
it is
just because
insane the difference with riding up there.
it's insane. The 450s feel more like 350s, 250s ish.
Like
But
first gear, I have to run a lot of first gear.
yeah, no, 100%. Starts are difficult, especially tracks like Lakewood that are just straight up. A lot of teams struggle with it. But what's also funny is the motor struggle, but then also the rider struggle, because Lakewood ended up having a couple um, night races because they were just like, oh, it's too hard on the body. People are getting like heat exhaustion. I'm like, dude, it's 70 degrees. There's no way. Definitely riding down at Tennessee or Florida or something is way harder. Texas, someplace where it's hot and humid, but people complain more about this stuff. And that's why it goes back to one of the reasons as to why I believe Tomac is so good as far as beast mode, where he doesn't just all of a sudden drop the hammer and then become 3 seconds a lap faster. What ends up happening is everyone starts slowing down and he just stays the same. So it looks as if he's riding faster, but no, he's just continuing the pace because of how good a shape he's in. And part of that is because it's like legalized EPO cheating, is because he lives at Cortez, Colorado, which is 6,500 feet. And then he comes down to sea level and he's got this, blood oxygen level that's above everyone else. So it's essentially, EPO.
Well, and to give people a little bit of insight what it feels like to be at 6,500 feet, take a straw, put it in your lips, and then put a clothespin on your nose and go out and race. Go as fast as you can on the motorcycle. That's what it feels like at altitude, because there's such a low level of oxygen in the air. That's why we have that mantra, as you said, Johnny: train high, race low. And then when you get into something like heat and humidity, what a lot of people don't realize is humidity. And this is, I'll get somebody that doesn't like me will say something snide in the comments area, but humidity is a percentage of moisture in the air. Well, when you think about skin wicking away heat through sweat, well, now you have water that meets water, and sweat cannot evaporate against another molecule of water. So you get what we refer to as a water blanket. That's why it seems so much hotter when you're in a humid environment, because you've got a heat blanket that's keeping the internal heat in. That exothermic process, your body's not able to rid itself of heat. And we're just like a motor. The hotter we get, the slower we go. So like you said, Johnny, you compound that. If it is hot and you're at altitude, I mean, I know the humidity is not any, like, what's your relative humidity in Colorado? It's got to be
Like,
20-30%.
yeah, 10-ish or
Yeah,
so.
even lower. Yeah. So see, like,
Right now, right now it's at 32. At
yeah,
least what my Garmin is saying. But
see, with us, it's going on 11 o'clock. It's 81 degrees here and we have 92% humidity,
yeah,
you
it's
know.
it's 9 o'clock here, 52 degrees. I'm at 7,000 feet and I'm at 32% humidity. And part of that deal is like when I was living in Arizona, my VO2 max was 58. And I've
Mhm.
been here for a month and now my VO2 max has gone down to 53.
Yep, that makes sense.
You
Now,
know,
what's interesting is you go back down and you get the tail of the snake. You're not going to feel the benefit to it. Before you had the proliferation of EPO, that's why they would go and do training camps for 3 to 6 weeks at altitude, and then you come down. But you've got to have a period of time before you actually race, because you've got to reacclimate to some other variables. But yeah, it's a crazy science behind it. Now, if you take somebody who trains at altitude, like a lot of the endurance athletes, and you're on a EPO corticosteroid HGH testosterone cocktail, That's kind of the magical cocktail. At altitude, and then you come down to sea level, that's when you see incredible performances that seem almost too good to be true. Johnny, I know with you kind of segueing into triathlon, did you see this past week a couple of the female Kenyan runners actually got popped for EPO? And
Honestly,
one
I
of the
didn't.
ladies from Kenya that got popped, she actually got sixth at the Tokyo Olympics. So stop and think about it. If you know somebody who's on EPO, a full cocktail, gets sixth at the Olympics, what does that tell you about the top five? You know, and people go, "Oh, you're just on a witch hunt." No, dude, use common sense. If you understand the percentage of improvement, and you guys can all Google it, there's a ton of clinical studies that are easy to read. Google, how much does EPO improve athletic performance? Because in our sport, people go, well, why would somebody take EPO? Well, it's like doubling the size of your oxygen carrying capacity. It's, I mean, it's a big bore kit on steroids. You know what I mean? Yeah, we're going
Yeah,
to use it.
how much would you like to have your first lap be kind of your last lap? I mean, there's a lot of training that goes involved in there,
Absolutely.
but it makes you to the point where you can continue to push, and that's why those things like ProCrit
Yep.
are amazing. Yeah, it's like $1,200 a month, but it's
Well, but if your
it's
bonus on the
amazing
weekend's
stuff.
100,000 and you're paying 8 to 10,000 a month, I don't know about you, but if I can make 300-400 grand in a month on bonuses, that 10 to 12 grand a month is
Yeah.
no big deal.
And Coach, I know we're getting into some weird conversations because like the EPO is great for during the race, right? And then
No, it's great
testosterone
for
and
recovery as well.
oh, see, I didn't know it was as good for recovery. I know like growth
Yeah,
and testosterone, those things help out quite a
no.
bit with.
I there's a you guys can Google this. There was, unfortunately, she committed suicide. Nina Kraft, if you look her up, she won Ironman Hawaii one year, and she's always been a very good long distance athlete. But then one year at Hawaii, she came out and she just it's what we call burning hot, and she didn't use a lot of judgment. She went out and just completely annihilated everybody on the bike. And it's one of those situations. If a performance seems too good to be true, it probably is. And she got popped for EPO, and a buddy of ours unfortunately lost his life. He got run over by a car on his bicycle on a way to a group ride, and we were at the celebration of life. And I just asked Nina point blank because I was new into coaching full time, and EPO was kind of something that it was almost kind of like a dark alley type of subject. If you were doing something like that, it's kind of like early bodybuilding days where yeah, people were taking steroids, but you had to be in the know to find out where to get them and how to take them and all that. So I didn't know anything about it, never had met anybody who had taken it. I said, Nina, what's the big difference on being on EPO? And she goes, Rob, she says, the most amazing thing on EPO is you can smash yourself and come back tomorrow morning and feel like you didn't do anything yesterday. Now you think about that from a psychological performance output. Think about Logan. He goes out, puts a big day on the bike. It may take a day or two to fully recover from that. Well, can you imagine? You could increase your output by 10 to 12% and then do that day over day over day. So now you've got this huge performance base, not to mention the confidence that you take to the races. You know that you pretty much can go right to near wide open and then just hang out there all day long because the oxygen carrying capacity is enormously improved, so you never get tired. So people say, like, there's been some interviews where people are like, "There's not EPO in our sport. There's no room for it." You're an idiot. You're just a freaking idiot. Because if you have warm blood going through your body and you breathe oxygen, EPO is a game changer. It is what it is. Now, if you look at what you mentioned, ProCrit, that was the first not over the counter, but that was the first ProCrit was created for people who are suffering from cancer going through chemo.
Yeah,
And you take
anemia
ProCrit to
medication.
increase the red blood cell count. So athletes are like, red blood cells, more oxygen, sign me up, right? And that's how it became very popular. But the point is when somebody says that EPO will not increase your performance, that's a very naive statement. That's more of a deflective type of a response. If someone says EPO is not in our sport, you're saying it's not because you clearly know it is.
Definitely not ostracizing anybody.
Yep.
We're just given the facts on something where it's a big advantage because I think the big difference here in our sport is it's not all about data numbers as
Mhm.
far as can you run a 5K in 15 minutes or something. There's a lot to be said is how big are your balls to be able to see bounce quad this triple or go through
Exactly.
these whoops wide open. And there's a big talent aspect, which I think almost is more important than the fitness aspect.